Hello, everyone. My name is Armando Corsi. I'm the director of the Wine Business Group at the Adelaide Business School, and I will be your host for today. Let me start with some welcoming for some special guests. I need to start with a bit of an apology. The Honourable Claire Scriven, Minister for Primary Industry and Development and Minister for Forest Industries, cannot be with us today. I was told Megan, the Chief of Staff, might be here with us. We heard from the Minister that she's really sorry that she cannot be with us this afternoon because she really puts value in the activities of Great Wine Capitals, particularly this one on the Outbound Knowledge Exchange program. I would also like to welcome my fellow Great Wine Capital Steering Committee members, starting with our Chair of the Steering Committee for the City of Adelaide, South Australia, Ms. Jo Collins, who is also the elected Vice President of Great Wine Capital's Global Network. Also, I would like to introduce you to Inka Lee from South Australian Wine Industry Association, Chloe Granger from South Australian Tourism Commission, and Simon Burgess from the National Wine Centre, which, as you know, is the beautiful venue that we're here today. Of course, last but definitely not least, the stars of the show, the 8 bursary recipients that are going to share their stories with us, the amazing places that they visited, and all the learnings that they've had from visiting all these wonderful locations. And it's also great to see all of you here, really a diverse mix of professionals from across the industry, for which I hope today's event is going to be a valuable use of your time, knowing how busy your schedule is. Also importantly, I want to acknowledge this land that we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Ghana people, and they will respect their spiritual relationship with the country. We also acknowledge the Ghana people as the custodians of the Adelaide regions, and their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Ghana people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting or attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. Before we actually start, also some housekeeping notes. Toilets are located at the top of the stairs to the left-hand side of the lift. In the case of an evacuation, follow the instructions from the venue staff. The meeting point is outside the ground floor of the center of the west end of the building, past the wine bar terrace, where you may or may not want to stop for a glass of wine if the world is really ending. And finally, after is also where the smoking area is. So just make sure that you don't get confused where the smoke might come from. And for the end of the evening, there is a taxi phone downstairs, or of course you can use your smartphone to call a Uber or a taxi. And today's event is also recorded, so we can share the presentations with the industry widely. Actually, we're also planning to share it with all other 11 Great Wine Capitals, so we can really have that global outreach. So now, what are we here for this afternoon? The Outbound Knowledge Exchange Bursary program is one of the flagship programs of the Great Wine Capitals here in Australia. And this is a program that is already starting to be copied, if we can say, from other Great Wine Capitals. Hawke's Bay has already started, and we're getting rumors that it might be taken up by other Great Wine Capitals across the world. This program gives the opportunity to wine industry professionals to travel to one or more of the 11 other Great Wine Capitals to build their knowledge and skills. During their travels, bursary recipients meet with key industry, regional, and educational stakeholders to share their experience, expertise, and energy, as well as to learn about practices and operation in their chosen field. Today's event is really an opportunity for us to hear from them about their experience and their learnings. The idea is for each recipient to build capability within their area of interest, and through forums such as this one, to maximize the benefits they can give to the South Australian wine industry. So how is this event going to run? I will call up all the 8 bursary recipients one by one. some of which have just returned, some of whom have just returned for their travel, so I hope they've had enough melatonin to get them going through the afternoon. Or they've come maybe a few months before and have already blogged a lot about their experience and their travel. Each of them will have exactly 3 minutes, not a second more, to share their experience with us. I'm going to particularly be pedantic with our PhD students because you may or may not know, but we have a thing at university is called the 3 minutes thesis competition. So hopefully there's going to be a bit more training about the fact that the presentations need to be done within 3 minutes. Daniel, who's at the back of the room, will be there with, I guess, a glass of wine and a knife to give a bit of a cling exactly at 2 minutes and 30 seconds so that you know that time is about to be up. So we can stop exactly at 3 minutes. And then we're going to wait for all the questions. So think about all the questions that you want to ask them, but we're going to leave the questions at the end of the 8 presentations, okay? So this is it. After that, I will invite Joe Collins to come up to say a few words on behalf of Minister Scriven. And after the formality is finished, I would like to invite you to share a glass of wine or two to talk with the bursary recipients to understand more about what their trip has been about, and also, of course, to chat amongst yourself. As I said, we hope that you find this as a valuable opportunity to learn, to connect, and to share knowledge amongst yourself. So, without further ado, I would like to start by calling up our first presenter for this afternoon, Thomas Bartholomeus for Torberg Vintners, who has visited my home country, Italy, and particularly has been in Verona. Thank you.
So yes, hello everyone. My name's Tom Bartholomeus and I'm Technical Viticulturist for Torberg Vintners. As I work with a large holding of old vine material, part of my position involves maintaining and improving vineyard health, sustainability and longevity. One of the ways I accomplish this is by utilising different pruning techniques, which led me to be introduced to the technique of soft pruning through an Italian-based consultancy company named Simonet & Cirque. Simonet & Cirque have worked with us in a varied capacity for the past 7 years and to share their extensive knowledge on soft pruning techniques, which focuses on branching vines as opposed to making larger cuts and pruning wounds that we see in pruning techniques frequently used in Australia. The more I've learned about soft pruning techniques, the more interested I've become in learning how their long-term use could improve sap flow, increase vine health and reduce the instance of trunk disease such as Eutypa dieback or Botrytis ferrea. Whilst it was beneficial to see Simonet & Cirque in action here in Australia, there was nowhere I could visit to view a vineyard that had used these techniques long term, as well as no local knowledge on applying the method. This led me to apply for the Bursary opportunity, which was centred around expanding my knowledge on the use and benefits of soft pruning methods in Italian vineyards that had been using them over a long-term period, and how I could effectively bring these techniques to Australian vineyards. In December of 2023, I travelled to Verona to meet with viticultural consultants regarding the use of soft pruning techniques. This was the best area for me to travel, as there are many vineyards in this area that have been utilising soft pruning over a long period. I spent the majority of my time in this region with Simonet & Cirque and also an independent consultant named Marco Tessari. During my trip, I visited multiple vineyards that had been using these methods for up to 60 plus years, including vineyards that had been converted to the method. I was also able to compare soft pruned vineyards to vineyards pruned under conventional methods. After working with these companies, my discoveries were quite clear. The instance of trunk disease was significantly lower in vineyards soft pruned, and as a result, these vineyards required less vines to be replanted or removed. The vineyards that were pruned using soft pruning methods also showed consistent and uniform cane growth, as well as lignification of wood, ultimately leading to well-balanced vines. During my visit, I also completed an advanced pruning course with Simonet & Cirque to enable me to improve my skills in order to confidently bring an understanding of pruning methods back to Australia. The fundamental rules learnt were that we need to minimise making large cuts when pruning or reworking vineyards, make cuts when pruning that promote unrestricted sap flow through the vine, and make pruning cuts in a manner that allows vinewood to die back without reaching the trunk. There are many more components of these methods that I haven't mentioned, which leads me to my findings, which is that I've spoken to our regional viticultural officer regarding giving a more detailed presentation at a regional event which will focus on the method itself as well as my findings and how to apply soft pruning to Australian vineyards. Ultimately, my findings exceeded my expectations in the long-term benefits of soft pruning methods, and I'm looking forward to sharing my knowledge and the application of such methods with our regional grower base in the years to come to continue to improve vineyard health and sustainability. Thank you.
Well, I definitely must say the pressure is on. Clear, concise, on time. So that's a great start of this afternoon session. So next one up, Shirley Fraser from Wine Australia.
Okay, I'm going to be the complete opposite of Thomas's technical speech. I went to Porto. So I'm Shirley Fraser. I have moved from when I went on the trip, I was with Sorby Adams Wines, and now I'm day 3 at Wine Australia. And I actually chose Porto for 2 reasons. I had always wanted to go and knew that it would be a beautiful place to visit from a wine tourism perspective, but I also found that the International Women in Wine Expo was being held in Porto, so I was able to attend that whilst I was there. And so I was able to meet with 90 women from over 27 different countries, and it was just a fantastic experience. And prior to the conference, I was able to go up into the vineyard areas. So my slides are just going to be rolling through as photos. So there's lots of people in mine because that's kind of my focus, is people. So I spent a couple of days in Pinhão, and then the 3 days of conference, and then a couple of days in Porto to actually see the areas. That's Pinhão, it was beautiful. And then had 2 days in London on the way home, where I also met the UK Women in Wine and also Wine Australia in London as well. So these are some of the areas that I went to in Pinhão. I went to some quintas there, and they were just amazing. And what I found was that the people are just so humble and friendly. It's a really beautiful place to see how vertically integrated they are. The nature and the sustainability that they use in their wineries and their vineyards is very natural in the sense it's not forced. The sheer slope and scope of their vineyards is astounding. Their use of water, not only as a resource but as an aesthetic, and the way that they have vineyards, wineries, cellar doors, wine cellars in the city. They have boats that are branded and all sorts of other things. Obviously, cork is really important, and from a sustainability perspective, we had a lot of discussion around the potential for Australia to reintroduce a bit more cork. Heritage is obviously massive, and it goes back, and the beauty of their blue and white tiles is just astounding. I actually have a little book as well, if anybody... Oh, I'm already finishing. Okay, sorry. From an Australian perspective, I could speak for hours. Simon, from a National Wine Centre, get yourself there to see the world of wine. It's like this place on steroids. The opportunity to have permanent engagement with restaurants and wine tourism. I mean, if you could think about having, as a wine capital network as well, from a supply chain perspective, a Women in Wine international exchange would be amazing. Just so many things that were there. From a learning perspective, it was just an amazing experience that I can't thank enough from Great Wine Capitals. So thank you. So sorry I'm not technical like Thomas.
So that's great. I like it. I mean, it's very exciting. So the third one, Janina Giordano from the University of Adelaide, who has been in Rioja and Italy and Verona.
Yeah.
Come through.
So, hi everyone, my name is Janina. Yes, I traveled to La Rioja and Verona. So, a little bit about my research. So, I'm currently doing a PhD at the Adelaide University with the RC Training Center for Innovative Wine Production. And I'm researching about alternatives for controlling Brettanomyces polish in wine. So as you know, Brettanomyces is a yeast that basically affects all the sensory and quality aspect of our wine. So I'm working with my industry partners, looking to find a new methodology for controlling this polish. So in La Rioja and Verona, I had the opportunity to talk about my research in the international conference about wine science. And also I presented at the University of Verona and also to the Wine Science Institute. I received feedback from winemaking students, academics, but also from the wine industry in order to shape my research to find a method that is applicable to also long-site facilities, especially because, as you know, in Europe, the wine style is mostly long-term aging. So this is me over there. So I had the good chance to meet a lot of people, and they were really friendly and helped me a lot to shape my research. So the things that I'm bringing to here, to South Australia, find a way to detect Brettanomyces, a rapid method, real time. The other thing is to find a methodology, but using the current technologies that we already have at the winery. The other thing is collaboration is key to apply these innovative technologies. And furthermore, I want to say something from my perspective. Since I'm becoming a researcher, I think we have the role to translate all the scientific terminology into clear information for the wine industry. So there I saw that they are really flexible, changing language. So I had to present mostly in the local language. And I think it's important as a researcher be able to adapt myself to each scenario. So I just want to thank you everyone for your time and this great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd be curious later on to see how many they might have talked about Brettes terroir from Europe, but we can talk about that later. The next presenter is Tony O'Hare from Beach Road Wines, who have been visiting Napa and only Napa. Well, thank you.
I was going to ad lib, but having seen those first few speakers, I'm going to read off my notes so I don't leave anything out. And so yes, the purpose of my trip was to examine how vineyards are being managed in regards to irrigation and extreme climates in California. I chose California because it shares a lot of similarities in climate, grape varieties, water resources and irrigation requirements with Australia. I started by attending the trade day at the Unified Wine Symposium in Sacramento. I'd arranged meetings with industry winemakers, viticulturalists and suppliers. I met with Nick Dzuklian, who is the head of wine growing with the largest wine company in the world, Gallo. We briefly discussed, unfortunately it was quite busy, there he is there, the importance of monitoring water use in vineyards. I recommended Australian technology to him, which I'm currently trialling in the Clare Valley as part of a ag-tech application with a grower there. And we discussed it briefly, and he just said that, well, we're actually making our own. So we're big enough, we just make our own, which is quite interesting. I visited the trade exhibition and I engaged with Centec Technologies, who are the Australian company now owned by an Israeli company who pioneered soil moisture technology. It was great to catch up with them, and they actually were distributing flyers with a case study that I did 20 years ago when I was at Wirra Wirra on RDI strategy to improve quality in Shiraz and save water. And I was able to actually talk to them about that case study and how it worked, and they were a lot clearer by the end of it, and they were able to share that with the customers on the day and carry that forward, that information. So it was a good exchange. Unfortunately, there were some appointments that didn't pay off. There were a few people that I was unable to catch up with on that day. But I then headed to Napa, and I was able to meet with viticulturists and winemakers in the Napa Valley. One of the key ones was one of the Gallo viticulturists, Patrick Tokar. We discussed the use of VPD, vapour pressure differential measurements to assess canopy health and fruit response to heat waves. It was really quite interesting. They're a fair way down the track with using that technology, and I was heartened by how they've been able to attach some metrics to that, and I brought that back, and now I'm really keen to try that in the trial in the Clare Valley. As a result of the visit, with Patrick, I was able to introduce him to people in Australia, George Dryden and Amanda Mader, who are using similar technology and are very early on in their use of it and development, and they are now sharing a really good exchange of information. I visited the largest vineyard in Napa Valley and discussed the challenges around irrigation of a very complex site with their vineyard manager, and I was interested to see some of the novel ways in which they deal with irrigation challenges, including having dual drip lines to help with quick turnaround with getting water down to depth. It's something which I think we'll probably need to adopt in Australia soon. I visited lots of lovely wineries and had some amazing tours through cellars and discussions with winemakers. I was able to meet with the first Afro-American female viticulturalist at the oldest vineyard in California, which was probably one of the highlights of the trip. They had the second oldest Semillon vines in the world at that vineyard, and my friends the Tyrrells and the Hunter had the oldest, so it was great. I grabbed a bottle of that Semillon to share with the Tyrrell family. Had a quick trip out to Lodi, spoke to Stephanie Bolton and addressed a group of growers there, and discussed the irrigation challenges that they have with technology, and they were open to suggestions to looking at the Australian technology that's being used now. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Don. Very interesting. Thank you very much. Our next presenter, which have just recently, I believe, come back from South Africa, is Marcel Custos. Yes, you are? Yes. Want to come up? Yes. Who has been in Porto and South Africa.
Thanks, Armando. Can everyone hear me? Great. All right, so I'm a fine wine and hospitality consultant, helping wineries to elevate their cellar door experiences. Hence, the purpose of my study trip was to learn about traditional and more innovative cellar door experiences and also destination development. So I went to 2 different countries, obviously South Africa, because they created this beautiful image in the last 20 years that they are right now in the forefront of wine tourism and wine experiences. And the other destination was Porto in Portugal, so the first demarcated wine region in the world. And despite of the declining trends of fortified wine production, it's actually quite amazing that more than 50% of tourism visiting Porto will actually visit the vineyards as well. So in both wine capitals, I visited current and past Best of Tourism Award winners and some of the best vineyards in the world as well. So it was all up 10 different wine regions and 41 wineries. In terms of size, they varied greatly in terms of their wine tourism. So anywhere between something very artisanal like 80 visitors annually all the way up to 60,000 visitors annually. And what I saw was that the cellar doors and the cellar door experiences actually go beyond mere wine tastings. In fact, the wine tasting part is almost the least important, as surprising as it sounds. It's all about telling their story and actually building their brand. So the direct-to-customer channel actually belongs to their tourism and marketing department, which is quite surprising. And so their focus was to build brands and also extend the visitors' engagement. So therefore, they could actually increase the spend. But the purpose of the seller was not to sell wine directly, which I found extremely surprising. And the other thing that really stuck with me was the very high level of professionalism and the level of training in their hospitality and tourism sectors. Both of those industries are seen as career paths, like real career paths, not just something that you do in between jobs. Those guys take hospitality and tourism insanely seriously. Employers provide professional development opportunities, WSET, sommelier courses, etc., etc. So not a surprise that they provide exceptional wine experiences. A couple of highlights for the Symington family in Porto. We are talking about several estates that they own, but for me it was more about the power of procedures that they implemented from one estate to another, and it created an incredibly consistent experience. And the other was Oldenburg in Stellenbosch, where they invested in their people and created the world's first and probably only cellar door team that consists of 100% sommeliers. So needless to say, it was absolutely exceptional in all fronts, from tours all the way to sales strategies. Thank you very much.
We leave the rest for questions at the end. Now you see, now you leave us wanting more. This is all what it's about. Wonderful. Thank you, Marcel. Sorry I have to stop you there. Our next presenter is Charles Maddison from Riverland Wine, of course from Riverland, who has also been to South Africa. And never.
I'm going to apologise, I'm going to read this out. I'm still got severe brain fog from jet lag. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Charles Matheson and I serve as the Grower Engagement Officer for Riverland Wine. Today I stand before you with a vision, one that seeks to have Riverland recognised as one of the most sustainable horticultural production regions globally. I want to express my profound gratitude to the Great Wine Capital Outbound Knowledge Exchange for the generous bursary, which has empowered me to embark on a transformative journey. I also want to extend my thanks to PIRSA, the Department of Tourism and Multicultural Affairs, and Riverland Wine for their unwavering support. During my expedition, I had the privilege of exploring Napa and the Cape winelands of South Africa. This voyage wasn't merely about sightseeing, it was about delving into sustainability practices and confronting the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. One critical observation from my travels is the omnipresent threat of leaf roll virus. This insidious foe jeopardises yield, quality and longevity of vineyards. Preventing its entry into Australia is paramount to safeguarding our industry. Moreover, the influx of Australian wine into California has disrupted grape prices over there, a testament to the interconnectedness of our global market. In regions like California and South Africa, where wine culture thrives, direct consumer marketing reigns supreme. However, the challenge lies in sustaining customer engagement amidst a sea of choices. Financial sustainability is a pressing issue across the wine industry. Despite the allure of grand cellar door experiences, many wineries struggle to turn a profit. Regulatory burdens, such as those in California, exacerbate this challenge, leading to compliance fatigue amongst growers. In South Africa, social support within local communities takes precedence, while carbon accounting dominates discussion in the UK industry. And leaf roll virus and encroachment of corporate interest on family-owned farms. And I've left my last sheet at home. So I apologise for that, but I look forward to answering many questions I can.
Thank you, Charles. Lots of familiar faces also from your slides, so really keen to learn more about your particular trip to South Africa. Our next presenter is also from the University of Adelaide. Her name is Susanna Mosikian. Thank you. Who has been visiting many places.
Can you hear me? Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Susanna, and I am a PhD researcher at the University of Adelaide. Thanks to the Department of Primary Industries and Regions, to Great Wine Capitals, and my supervisory panel, led by Armando Corsi, I had an incredible opportunity of visiting 3 wine capitals in Europe, Bordeaux, Verona, and Mainz. The main reason why I chose these regions was that they are in the forefront of climate change adaptation, and the main aim of my visits was to understand how are these regions tackling the challenges related to the integration of novel grape varieties into the industry and promotion to the market. And the novel grape varieties such as gene-edited varieties, hybrids, PVs, and non-traditional grape varieties have a great potential to help the resilient and sustainable development of wine industry all over the globe. In my first visit in Bordeaux, one of the most interesting visits was in Château La Tour Carnet, who are basically trying to simulate climate situations, climatic conditions that are typical for 2050 in Bordeaux. And what they try to understand is how some grape varieties are going to function and to find the most suitable grape varieties that will be the most suitable for Bordeaux in 2050 and in the future. Then the next visit was in Verona, where I had a great opportunity to meet research groups that are developing gene-edited grape varieties. Although they are not producing now commercial wines from these varieties, but they are at the moment navigating the regulatory landscape related to these grape varieties in Europe. Finally, in Germany, I had an opportunity to visit and to chat with 50 or more PV producers that have an initiative that is called Wines of Future. And they have been very successful promoting PV grape varieties in Germany in the last couple of years. Why are these visits important, or why are these insights important for South Australian wine industry? Well, I believe that first, this demonstrates how we can find grape varieties that could be the most suitable in our local wine industry in the future. Then second, we could try to understand how we can navigate the regulatory landscape to be able to integrate gene-edited grape varieties in the local wine industry. And finally, how we can promote non-familiar and non-traditional grape varieties in the local market. But I believe that the key takeaway from this trip has been that climate change is actually a global issue with not single solution. What we can do is that we need a collaborative efforts across different sectors of wine industry to be able to find solutions and to efficiently navigate these challenges. My trip was really long and I have lots of things to share. So I'm more than happy to have a chat with you later during the event or afterwards. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well done. 3 minutes. Well done. 3 minutes. That's how we like it. Okay, so our last presenter, definitely but not least, Ashley Radcliffe from Ricatera, who has been visiting Napa.
I'll go over my 3 minutes. You can fail me my PhD. I don't care. Mine's more a reflection than a report. So first of all, thank you for the Great Wine Capitals and PIRSA for allowing me to travel to Napa. And I actually had a little morning in Lodi. I actually took my son with me, and I paid for him, just want to let you know. Spent 2 weeks. He's actually skiing in Banff, so it actually was really a pinch myself moment. My trip, I went to the States to look at how that region was managing climate change and also looking at how their sustainability programs are working. And I was really lucky at the same time the Napa Wine Grape Growers Association was running a climate change workshop, which Henry and I sat in on. The professor who was presenting was Andrew Isaac, who was from UCA Berkeley, and he was I guess one of the leaders in climate change. Set a very grim picture of where we sit in the world as farmers in regards to climate change. And he did state very clearly science doesn't lie. So I must admit, walked out a little bit depressed. But I was out and about with winemakers and grape growers in Napa, and they were probably not listening to the same alarm bells that Professor Isaac was. They were very confident about where they were, and for them, climate change didn't seem to be much of an issue on the surface. But there was definitely an Eminem lose yourself moment, which was their palms were sweaty, their knees were weak, arms were heavy. There was sweat on their sweater already. Mum's spaghetti. They knew what was coming in regards to climate change. 2021 saw massive losses in fruit, and Kendall Jackson had gone to the extreme of putting all 200 acres of their vineyard under mist protection to keep the temperature down. Obviously, drought was front of mind for many of the grape growers up there, and wildfire, bushfires were definitely a problem for them, not now but into the future. Despite this, Cabernet was still king, and it was hard to imagine why would a grower or winemaker go from Cabernet to Narra d'Avola when they were still fetching anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 a tonne, and actually somebody told me up to $60,000 a tonne, so pretty let's understand why would you change. But the smart wine growers and winemakers were thinking about the issues of new varieties sneaking into their valley. The sustainability programs was something else I really wanted to understand. Remember, this was a week, so it was, there's not much you can see in a week. But what I did find about their sustainability programs, they were plentiful. There was a sustainability program on a state basis, on a regional basis, and then also on problem basis. And so how that industry was going to, I'm going to keep going, so don't worry about tapping. What they were going to do, how they were going to market that to their consumers, I felt was going to be a great challenge. So in reflection, my 1 week trial, a whirlwind trip, was climate change was an issue for Napa and every other region in the world. The high profile, the Disneyland-like, the slightly arrogant approach from a lot of winemakers, and I meant this is going across the world, isn't it? So hopefully I get come back to Napa. Maybe a part of their story that might actually stop them adapting as well as we may. And I think one of the things I got out of coming there was that Australia is in a very good position. But as a grape wine capital, I feel that we're watching potentially the boat sail. We're light years ahead of Napa in regards to using climate adaptive grape varieties, root stock management, irrigation whatsoever. Our sustainability program, SWA, is something that is amazing, and it's something that we should be very proud of. We should be out there telling the world about our stories, and I was talking to Nigel Blisky about this earlier. We need to be telling more about our stories because Australian wine in America at the moment is in a world of pain. So, let me just get to my last page.
There we go. Yeah. You have time, right?
I have time. So my point of view, going forward, what I've learned out of this and my reflection is we need to start behaving as one. Our national wine bodies need to understand who they serve, but we also need to understand that as one, those bodies have a great power to put us in a great position. And we need to be very proud of our sustainability program. I know many of you in the room may have read or spoken to that we have a great opportunity to teach the wine consumer about what we can do to help our planet a little bit better. And I think we're better positioned than Napa. We've got to stop sniping, backstabbing, shit-canning our industry bodies, our industry and each other. I said tell more stories. So finally, we need to stop being so negative. We need to be more positive. One thing I came out of Napa, no matter how bad the Napa wine region could be, it's not, I just can't imagine them giving themselves a hard time in the media. We have a little saying at Ricatera, you can't sell a wine with a whinge. So thank you.
Yes, we know from Stephen Hawking that the concept of time sometimes is a bit flexible. So that surely was another 3 minutes presentation. Thank you, Ashley. So that brings us to the end of the 8 presentations, okay? I would like to really give another big round of applause to all our presenters. But in doing so, I'd like to invite them to come on stage so that, please, that's the reason why there are 8 bar stools on stage. It wasn't just for decor. Right? So that we can start bombarding them with questions, right? Are they 8? Yes? Is that a chair for everyone? It's like musical, exactly. It's a musical chairs. So, who would like to break the ice? We have a microphone. Perfect. Thank you very much.
It's already on. Thank you.
Oh, next. Thank you, Chris. Please.
So I think it applies to all of you guys, but especially to Susanna with the gene-edited varieties. How do you guys think extension and like adoption programs run by different industry bodies will play? Like what type of role will they play in this massive change that we need to embrace if we want a very successful industry moving forward?
Can you hear me? Yes. Very good question, and a bit challenging because gene-edited grape varieties are, at the moment, I believe, in a gray zone because the regulations related to gene-edited varieties are not very precise, neither in Europe nor in Australia, Australasia. And do I believe that gene-edited varieties could be an important component of sustainable development of wine industry? My very personal professional opinion is that yes, but I also think that we have a lot of work to do in terms of first to understand consumer behavior towards this, and that is one of my PhD research questions. And also to understand, well, when the regulatory landscape is more precise, then to understand how are we navigating that. Because depending on the regulations, then a lot of things are going to change on what consumers will see on the labels or what the producers need to put on the labels when they are producing wines from gene-edited grape varieties. What will be the role of the national bodies in that change or integration of gene-edited grape varieties? I think, again, the connection between the link between research, industry, and a lot of communication on what are the priorities and how we can effectively navigate this to be able to integrate them as soon as possible. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Susanna. Chris, I think if we can bring the microphone here.
Thomas, I'm just really interested in this soft pruning. I wonder, is it actually a tool being done here in Australia, or more particularly South Australia? And then what is the prevalence of the trunk disease in Australia, or more particularly South Australia again?
Sure. So I was introduced to the method through Simonet and Cirque, who fortunately for us have a regional consultant that kind of addresses Australia and New Zealand as a whole. So I had spent some time working with him and was able to be introduced to the methods that they're using through that process, them coming out and working with different companies or them starting to speak to regional, groups as a more, a broad spectrum thing. So for me then, UTIPA being quite present in older vine material, being a disease that slowly kills our vines, if not managed correctly, if not reworked, is an issue here. But for me, they have a disease called ESCA over there, which is essentially our disease on steroids. So what I wanted to gain from that component of my trip was if they can beat this with soft pruning methods and they can decrease the instance of a disease such as that, it should enable us to create healthier vines over here, therefore ultimately reducing the cost of reworking and crop loss in the future. So working with them here as well as over there.
So, sorry, just to take it a step further, I mean, the knowledge seems, I don't want to downplay it, but quite simple. I don't want to downplay it, but I think, it's like quite doable?
It's doable, but there's essentially a rule book. There's a huge rule book of things that they go into. If I had an hour, I could keep talking to you about the method and the components and the bits and pieces we should and shouldn't do. The shoot thinning component that goes along with it as well is just as important, but essentially setting up an entire season, a growing season of working your vines correctly to aid different processes of wound healing and growth from planting right through to an old vine. So,
thank you very much. Thank you, Tom. Other questions from the floor? Yes, please.
I think it was for you, Tony. You mentioned leaf roll virus. Was it? No, Charles? Charles, sorry. How rampant it was. Did you visit any nurseries or get any understanding of how they're trying to manage that with clean material for the industry, because it's becoming a big challenge for Australia.
Yeah, the leaf roll virus variety we've got is not anything like what they've got in Europe, Napa and California and South America. But in Lodi, they're trialling using sniffer dogs in the nurseries to try and identify with the virus. If you look at South Africa, their sustainability model involves a scorched earth policy around vines to try and stop the spread of the virus by killing all the ants anywhere near the place, because the ants act as little insects that move the mealybugs around the place. It's a major problem for them all, which they haven't got a cure for yet.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Oh, Tony.
There's to anybody on the stage. I mean, you went there to learn about their areas. What was the impression, do you think, that they had of the Australian or South Australian wine industry in the South Australian wine regions? Did they have any sort of sense of what was going on here? Was there a knowledge about what we were doing? Were they interested in what we were doing? That kind of thing. Is anybody who would, who may have picked up on that?
That's probably for all of you in many ways.
I'll start with that. As part of my project, I developed a network looking at from every region within the two countries I went to, looking at the future of sustainability and more particularly the future of financial sustainability of the owners of capital, which is without that the three legs of the stool for ESG are going to fall over. They were really excited to have the exchange of information, and despite the fact that Australia's seen as so far away, they're really keen to develop further exchange right across the board. That was my observation anyway.
If I had 5 minutes, Tony, I was getting to this point. One thing that I also did as part of my bursary was to went to see distributors and importers, and I had dinner one night with a group called Epicurean, and asked the question of what's the problem with Australian wine, and the response was Australia. And it seemed to be a real issue at the moment, where once upon a time we had a really good foothold in the US market, and we've lost that. And also caught up with Chuck Haywood, who actually had the Jug Shop in San Francisco, and the same story. So again, one of the things that I made mention in my presentation was that they want to see more Australian winemakers back in trade, how we used to, telling our stories. So I think we're in an awful position over there in many parts of the world, because we're not travelling enough and not telling our unique stories. And we've got some of the best wines on this planet. We're just not telling people.
Sorry, moving on from that and specialness of South Australia, I think one thing that we have in our pocket is the absence of phylloxera, which is something that we should be super proud of and protective of. I mean, for me, working with pruning consultants, the fact that they could talk to me about working with vineyards that were up to 170 years old, that's something that they obviously don't have in most instances. And so for us, the relaying of knowledge of managing vineyards, but then also working with vineyards that are so old, is just something super special and something that, in a lot of instances people don't have. So.
From my experiences around irrigation and water management, we're streaks ahead of what's going on in America. We have regulated water resources, which they don't. It's a bit of a free-for-all still there at the moment. The government's trying to instigate some laws around taking water out. They're going to encounter a lot of resistance from the growers in California, but it's that unfortunately a mentality which is going to be hard to break, but they're going to have to. We're way ahead of them with that, so we look after our water resources much better, and we've taken a lot of voluntary licensing to make sure that we have water resources into the future, sustainable resources. Technology-wise, they're still way behind as well. They're starting to catch up. But water's still cheap, so while water still remains cheap and pretty much easy to get, they're not really looking at adopting too much technology, whereas I think Australians take a little bit more of a forward approach into the future, and they want to be prepared for what's coming with tightening of water. And we also have pretty high costs of pumping water and buying water, so we've been forced to adopt technology a bit faster because of that.
Anyone else? Shirley?
Thank you. I had two areas that I engaged with from an Australian perspective. Australian Women in Wine, I was able to, in advance of the trip, actually have 3 or 4 Zoom calls with people, which was great because it felt like I had friends by the time I got there. And we talked about how women in wine groups in Portugal, the international as well, like the international conference that I attended, which is separate to that group, and then also the UK. So they really look to Australia and our comms that we put out, and a lot of the news stories that we share. We make an effort to share international stories here as well, so that was really good. I also met with the Porto Protocol team, and just their commitment to sustainability and so many opportunities for us as a country to engage. And that's why I think from a Great Wine Capitals, I'd love to see it beyond wine tourism. I just think we've got such an opportunity. We exchange ideas, technology, packaging, dry goods, all sorts of ideas. And from that perspective, seeing wines from 27 different countries, you just see the similarities and the differences, and the opportunities to engage within the network a lot more strongly, beyond just it being a tourism, and which Celador is a lovely place to visit. So yeah, that was really good from a network perspective.
Wonderful. Sure.
2 points. I believe that the perception of Australia, from the perspective of research, there was a lot of respect towards the wine research that is done in Australia. And then another point that might not be of primary importance, but still I wanted to share, is the name of alternative varieties. We call them alternative varieties here, or emerging varieties. We have different names, but usually we do call alternative. And across the different capitals that I was presenting my research related to alternative varieties, all of them were confused because they thought alternative varieties are the hybrids, which could be something to consider if we want to target countries, export countries with alternative varieties, then to consider the name for these varieties. Yes.
That's good. Any other thoughts? Otherwise, we might pass it. Gone. The gentleman at the back.
Yeah, hi, thanks everyone. Some great insights. Just a question about any exposure to or observations of circular economy, waste management, and particularly biochar or carbon markets in your travels.
Not on the biochar side of things, but the Porto Protocol was massive into the circular economy. The commitment with Cork in Portugal was very much about that. We talked about in the conference. The conference theme was sustainability as well, so there was a lot of talk. Actually, I'll give you a contact for hybrids. With lots of areas about circular economy and that sort of thing in there. So that was a really big topic too. Unfortunately, you haven't got enough time to talk about it.
That's what we have. You want to have the opportunity for people to chat after the official panel. Thank you. Mark? There was a microphone.
So, Janina, I'm not letting you get away here, okay? So I've got a question for you. So, in your travels around Europe, you know, it's always been a bit of a joke about, you know, Brettanomyces is part of the terroir of some of the wines in Europe, right? But what attention are you seeing, you know, the cellars that you went through in Europe, you know, paying to the control and of Brettanomyces in the cellar and in the wines?
Thank you. I was waiting for that question. So the main thing there in Europe is the long-term aging. So most of the wine styles are made for aging like 2, 3, 4 years. So besides that, the wineries apply different protocols, different strategies to control and monitor the wine. So basically they spend a lot of time, resources to make sure that they can keep the quality of the wine. So it was a general request that I received there. From then is like, try to find a methodology where we can reach the stability, the microbiological stability of the wine. In that way, we don't spend a lot of time, resources, because it's, for them, Brettanomyces is an extra cost of production. So, and this is the thing that I'm working at the moment. And also they asked me, please use a technology, something that we already had in the winery. So in that way, we don't need to spend more money, invest time, training more people to learn how to manage Brettanomyces. And the thing is, I'm trying just to give the last touch of my research and provide to the industry with the methodology that they can feel confident that they are reaching the stability, but a long-term stability rather than checking every time, every week sometimes. So that's the thing. And they feel it's a general problem around each region that I visited. The problem was there, and the winemakers were like, I don't know, really honest regarding the problem, because they didn't try like to hide the situation. They told me, oh, please, we have this winery size, we use barrels, we like to age the wine in barrels, in bottles, so please make sure that your project provide an important insight for the industry. In that way, Brettanomyces is not anymore a problem for the wine industry.
Thank you. Thank you, Janina. Sherry, you have a question? Yep. And I think we might need to start bringing to a conclusion. But
thank you, guys. So I'm a PhD student studying market evolution, particularly interested in the industry level evolution. So this is a question about the competition and also cooperation or competition as well. So it was a question about actually for Susanna, because I'm interested in, for example, the climate change and how do the individual wineries are doing certain stuff, and what's their role for collaboration in terms of the industry level. And like you mentioned, that the regulatory role can play quite importantly in that place. And also it's probably a question for everyone else as well in terms of like pruning methods, women in wine, and also disease control. So how do your impression in terms of the collaboration out there comparing to what we're doing here? Yep, that's a question.
Thank you for the question. I think that, yes, as I said at the end of my speech, I think that one of the key ways to be able to address the challenges related to climate change is efficient collaboration. And in some regions, I did so collaboration, and some others, I wouldn't say so. And I think that was one of the strongest impressions I had during the trip. There are different research institutions. They are doing the same research related to gene editing, related to hybrids. They don't have any idea what is the other research institution doing. There is no collaboration, or there is some collaboration, but not very strong one, even in the same country between different regions. In the same region, yes. Between different regions, not really. And I can even say, let's say Champagne and Bordeaux, I don't think they are very strong in the collaboration, but that's my opinion again. They might question that. But also, for example, Italy and France, they are doing amazing research related to gene editing, but they don't really know that much about each other.
Of course.
Well, that has cultural reasons, that has professional reasons, I guess. But
particularly with France.
I might be naive, but I believe that it could be much more efficient when they share with each other, and when all of us share with each other, and that will be better and easier to learn and to be more efficient, to progress.
That's good.
Yes.
Can I just have one last question for Marcel? Because I was really interested in one thing that you said about the visit to vineyard as part of their tourism experience, also connected with also what Tom said about, hey, we have vineyards at 170 years old. There is a reason why we don't let people walk through our vineyards just randomly. Based on your experience, how we can embed, however, some of that element in the wine tourism cellar door offering so that we can talk to tourists more about this amazing background that we have here that it's not there in many other parts of the world?
I think there are several ways of doing this, but what I've seen throughout my visits was that the vineyard tour and the cellar tour was part of almost every visit, and the option that any visitor had was essentially choosing the wine flights that they wanted to taste. So everyone would go through the storytelling, and everyone would see where the grapes were grown, where the wine was made, and then you would get to taste some of the wines. But the overall storytelling, the communication about the brand, the values of the brand, of the region was the same for everyone, whether someone wanted to spend 25 euros or 100 euros, depending on the wines and that was another important thing, is that obviously doing a tour and taking people in the vineyard, that will take up at least 1 hour, 1.5 hours of one or two staff members, which means it costs money. So therefore all wine tastings and winery visits are charged, and they are not redeemable because you pay for the experience.
Thank you very much. Look, hopefully this has really given us even more food for thoughts in terms of what we can ask them, use you guys as our new beacon of lights for all the topics that you've covered through your visits. But unfortunately, we need to also to bring it to an end so that we can also have more opportunity to chat once the formalities are finished. So can you please join me in congratulating them again and thanking you for sharing your knowledge with us. And can I please ask you to move back to your seat so that we can move to the concluding remarks of this afternoon. And for that, I would like to invite Ms. Jo Collins to join us on stage to share a few words also on behalf of Mrs. Scriven.
Thank you, Armando, and I'll try and stick to my 3 minutes as well, so you don't have to ding me. Thanks, David. Look, unfortunately, the Minister is really unwell this evening, and also really disappointed that she can't be here to hear about all the really fantastic things that you've learned whilst away as part of this initiative. And she has asked if I'd just share a bit of her speech, which I'm really delighted to be able to do tonight. Can I also acknowledge that the land that we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. And also just want to acknowledge Simon Burgess from the Wine Centre and all of your team. Thank you very much for hosting us here this evening, but also to the partners in our local membership that invest their time and finances in running a number of initiatives, including the Outbound Knowledge Exchange. So Inca from the Wine Industry Association, Armando from the university, and also Chloe from the Tourism Commission as well. We thank you. And also a thank you to Chris Lloyd, who was one of our state's food and wine ambassadors, for joining us here tonight as well. It's really lovely to have you. Most importantly, to all of you, our bursary recipients, who have done a really fantastic job in sharing your experiences with us this evening. And I also just want to acknowledge all of our Great Wine Capital friends from across the world who will be listening to this recording, and sincerely thank those of you who have hosted our recipients as part of this process within your regions. So it's really great to be part of a really wonderful occasion. We first ran this initiative right before COVID, so we had people go and visit other parts of the Capital Network, and unfortunately we couldn't do what we're doing tonight and sharing the information because we were in a very different situation at that time. It's also just a really great opportunity to get together and have some networking and a celebratory glass of great South Australian wine post-harvest. And just to say that the government is really proud through PIRSA to lead the local steering committee chapter in delivering some of these really fantastic initiatives. In terms of the Great Wine Capitals Global Network, the outstanding quality of South Australian wine and wine tourism is well known locally, but it's also acknowledged by our international peers. For those of you who may not know, we were unanimously voted into this network by members back in 2016, and it really provides us with a great opportunity for global recognition of our outstanding industry across the areas of production, research, education and wine tourism, and it also allows us to benchmark against the other renowned wine regions as well, such as Bordeaux and Napa Valley, which you've heard a bit about tonight. I do want to say it is more than tourism. Tourism is a really big focus for the network, but we have had so many great opportunities in terms of exchange of knowledge and collaborating really closely with our colleagues, and it's extended well beyond tourism. And I think, Mark, you'd agree, post bushfires, both when Napa had their fires, in terms of sharing knowledge with us, which was really well received, and us sharing knowledge with Napa post our fires and all the fantastic work that was undertaken at AWRI, which eventuated into some really great outcomes. I think that session we had about 250 winemakers from memory from Napa tuned in to hear what we were doing locally, which was really terrific. In terms of the Porto Protocol, we are part of the Porto Protocol through our membership to the network, so that is something we absolutely surely need to tap into, which is terrific. COVID was another area of great exchange. When we were all in lockdown, we all connected via our online opportunity to really learn about what everybody else was doing during lockdown and how they were adapting to that particular situation. And I think probably the latest, greatest exchange we've actually had was post the last AGM, where we were sharing knowledge with the Commissioner for Agriculture in Napa Valley and all of the issues that they were having around fruit fly, and have created a really fantastic dialogue between California officials, but also officials here in biosecurity as well. And we've shared a lot at the last AGM about building resilience in each of our regions with some of the real challenges that we're all facing at the moment as well. In terms of the Outbound Knowledge Exchange program, it is a really important initiative. We see it as a really important initiative as part of our local steering committee, and it offers benefits at two levels. So one, professional development for individuals, but two, opportunities for our local wine industry to leverage the knowledge and experiences of other top wine regions as well. While the 3 bursaries were originally on offer to this cohort, the quality of the applications that we received was so great that we managed to get a bit more funding to be able to support the 8 bursaries that were ultimately awarded. And to each of you, congratulations on being awarded the opportunity. Thank you for your excellent presentations this evening. I've got lots of things I want to talk to you about as well, and really encourage you to continue to keep sharing the lessons and ideas beyond today's event to the benefit of the rest of our state. On behalf of the Minister, today I'm really pleased to announce that the Steering Committee is offering the Bursary program again this year. So if you know someone that might be interested in this excellent international learning experience, then I really encourage you, or to encourage someone you know, to put forward an application. The process and applications will open up on the 1st of July. Which is really fantastic. And the other flagship program that we have is the Best of Wine Tourism Awards, which celebrates excellence and innovation in wine tourism. And the awards for this year are open as of today. And again, if you know someone, who offer outstanding wine tourism in the categories of culinary experiences, innovation, accommodation and more, we really encourage you to put yourself forward as well. And we're very fortunate to have 2 of our judges here tonight, in Tony Love and also in Helen Edwards as well. And Nick Ryan is the other one who unfortunately couldn't be here today. Always looking as a steering committee for ways to support broader participation in both these programs, in particular through sponsorship. So if it sparks an interest for any of you, then please speak to any one of the steering committee members here today. More details about what I've spoken about tonight with the Outbound Knowledge Exchange and the Best of Wine Tourism Awards will be emailed to you all post this event today as well. So been wonderful to hear everything that has been experienced. Look forward to talking more. Thank you, Armando, for doing a terrific job in hosting today. Thank you to Tara and David for organising. And just, I guess, one last little plug I'll make as well is that the AGM this year will be held in Verona from the 20th to the 24th of October. I can absolutely guarantee that if you want to go and learn the best and be experienced to the best that another great wine producing region has on offer across a lot of different areas, it's the best place to do it. It's about $1,500 Australian dollars to participate in the business delegation part of the program. That covers a lot of expenses, and if you're really looking to gain knowledge of other great wine capitals, it's a really top way to do it and a very affordable way to do it as well. So if anybody wants any further information on that, then speak to one of the steering committee members as well. Thank you very much. Thanks, Amanda.
Okay, well, this is really just now me between you and the drink, so I'm going to keep it as short as I can. I just really want to thank all of you for attending, to the Bursary recipients for the excellent job that you've done tonight in telling us your stories and your experience. I also would like to thank Tara and Caitlin, that unfortunately is not with us today again, but without them, this presentation, this whole night would not be possible, so thank you for that. To Daniel for being such a perfect timekeeper for all of us, and definitely to also the National Wine Centre and Simon and his team for keeping this event as great as it always is. From me, again, thank you for your attention, thank you for attending. These events are really good when we have a great audience that is active and is participating, that then can use further thoughts to bring it back to the regions, to the companies, so that we can use all the knowledge tomorrow, in the way in which we do our business. So without further ado, again, thank you, have a great night, and keep the chats going. Cheers. That's good. Done.